What's going on, Hawkill? We are broadcasting live from the 1851 radio studio on St. Joseph's University campus and brought to you by the Courtside Broadcast Network. This is Chuck's Chat by Takesmiths for Takesmiths. And joining me as always, Michael, Tony, Zaka.
How you doing?
Great day to be alive. Best day of my life. And, of course, Jeffrey, Stretch. Had it on.
Thanks for having me on, Chuck.
Yeah, of course.
That's it. No, not even any more appreciation for the king over here.
They paid my respects.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're supposed to have Joe Lunardi on today. He's not here yet, so stick with us.
Filling in is our very own Octavius.
Yeah,
Hell no. Stay on that couch.
Stay on the couch.
Kidding.
So-
we love you.
yeah. So
No,
Ryan is out there giving.
He's like giving 182% for the show.
Yeah, he's standing outside, and this is. I'm pretty sure this has been like the worst weather day in weeks.
Yeah, no, it has been.
So it's 43 and rainy, and Ryan's standing outside waiting for Joe Lunardi to show up. If he even shows up, we don't even know.
Should we give him a chair? Like, just bring him a chair downstairs?
We
Like,
need
just
to-
to sit down?
Ooh, that'd actually be a good
Wait,
idea.
would it be funny if, like Octavius, if you just run downstairs with, like, a piece of paper that says Lunardi and just, like in the airport?
Oh, that would be hilarious.
That'd be
Please.
hysterical.
Yeah, do that.
And, like, give it to Ryan.
Notebook and pen.
Yeah, right here.
Right over here.
All right.
Just, like, getting picked up at the
Giant
airport.
letters.
I have a pen too.
You know how to spell Lunardi?
No, it's like...
It's
Lunardi.
exactly how you think. Yeah. Actually, it's not.
Use the
exactly.
table you have right in front of you.
Oh, my
Alright.
gosh. Oh, my
It's
gosh.
so much harder than it needs to be.
I know.
Yeah, so Joe Lunardi possibly showing up. We don't know. Ryan's out there. He's waiting to flag him down. The brave soul, Prince Pretty himself. So until then, yesterday was Billy Lang, Coach Billy Lang, officially his introductory
How are
press
you doing?
conference at St. Joe's, and we had only two men, I guess, could go and vlog that experience. And Tony, you were the guy vlogging away with Ryan. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and the press conference in general?
No, it was the overall feeling of the conference was phenomenal. I'm just gonna say, summarize in one word, but I had a very good feeling just listening to him talk. He really, if you haven't listened, go on our YouTube channel, Chuck's Chat, shameless plug right now, and listen to our the video of Billy Lang. Just say essentially it's a welcoming event, but I feel it's like a swearing in event.
Yeah, it's like the president.
But yeah, he was really emphasizing culture and what kind of culture he wants to bring to the program. Something that he didn't necessarily think it lacked, but he didn't say it. But I think something that lacked within the program, like a culture of winning, but also I guess a culture of family. And I know like some people would debate me about this. I think like Martelli did bring that sense of family there, but like I didn't feel it from a student, that kind of perspective. Like I felt like we had a great basketball team, and like we have a great community at St. Joe's, but like we didn't. I'm speaking on my behalf that like I didn't feel that like that sense of family. That I felt like there was more of a disconnect. Would you guys agree?
I do agree. Because we talked about this yesterday a little bit. With you were saying, I thought it was God.
Oh,
God, you got me.
Why'd you crumple it up?
Did he crumple up and throw it back at you?
He told me to throw it in your face.
All right,
That's
well,
fair. All right.
you can stay out
But
there
yeah,
for another 20
no,
minutes.
we were
Prince
talking-
Pretty,
we were-
how's that sound?
we were talking about before, like I guess just our experience on campus. Like if like Billy just like walks around campus, like we can match the face to the name, like just little things like that really make you like have more pride, and you'd be like, oh, he really cares, like he's around events. Like I know Martelli did it with some club events, but like you reached out to him, but personally I didn't see him like walking around. I know at other schools like Izzo is walking around, and you said what's his name from
James Franklin's always walking. Like my brother always sees him walking around at Penn State.
like that's amazing. And like that sense that you get from just seeing it, like if you'll go to a game when we're getting killed by 40 points, like a Nova game.
What?
Like I'd go to a game.
What are you talking about?
I'd go
if you're gonna go to the Nova game because they're Villanova.
Okay,
If they're down 25 at halftime, I'm not gonna show up to the game because the coach walks around campus.
Okay, no, but I'm saying even
he's here.
He is?
Yeah, Ryan just said he's here.
No
No
way.
way.
Hell yeah.
See ya.
No, but I know what Zaka's
You know what I'm saying?
in
Like
the sense of like.
I know. I just took that. I took that the complete like
Yeah.
literal meaning,
right? Yeah,
and just had to just throw it back in his face. That's
thanks.
Sure.
Really,
it's
thanks.
the show. Yeah, anytime.
It's just the brand.
Get over here, Jeff.
All right,
Let's control him with Apollo 13 when NASA landed.
Yeah, we need to play
Connor.
the 1994 Chicago Bulls intro as he walks in.
I don't know. I'm so excited. But yeah, no. We got basically what we're kind of gonna just rattle off some questions, kind of like.
What's up? Oh, I mean, it's up to you. And now we'll be
good. But yeah, I think he's coming up the stairs right now.
You can hear him
I'm so excited. I hear footsteps.
Yeah, it's. I feel. Oh well.
But
yeah.
Oh wait, get the door.
Oh yeah. Get the. Well, Ryan has a swipe. Oh.
Welcome, fellas.
Hey.
Joe, how's it going?
I made a wrong turn.
Oh, good.
How are you? How's it going? Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hi.
I'm Connor.
Connor.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'll come over.
All right.
I'm Charles. You can call me Charles.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
All right. Whatever you want. I'm all yours.
Yeah, Joe, we got a mic for you right here.
Yeah, you get
Okay. All yours.
You get the good chair.
All right. Very good. Is that because I'm me or because I'm old? Whatever one you want.
Ryan, I'm so sorry that you had to wait out there. It's fine, man.
You're
Thanks for the program.
You're the Chuck Chat MVP of the week. Congrats.
That's not a real
It's a prestigious award.
Not a real thing.
We're making
It'll
we're
be
making an award.
the Ryan and Jayen award.
How you feeling today?
Great.
Great. You go by. You want us to
Friday
call
afternoon. Life is good.
You want us to call you Joe, right, or Mr. Lunardi?
No,
like,
Joe's fine.
Joe's good. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah. So, how was the regional final?
I went to the D.C. regional, and yeah, it was really great. I was at the Sweet 16 round, not the Sunday round.
Okay.
So what's today? Friday. A week ago tonight, Duke, Virginia Tech, and who did Michigan State beat? LSU.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good second game. For
Not
sure.
terrible.
Yeah.
Not terrible.
I guess so. The first question, I guess, would be that a lot of people just know you from bracketology, but don't really know that you actually work here. So, could you talk about what all your responsibilities are?
Yeah. Apparently, that list includes our new basketball coach. 'Cause I walked in and poked my head in the door with Billy yesterday, and he's like, "Look, I don't think he had just found out yesterday."
Yeah.
But he said, I had no idea that, like, it's what he was trying to say was, like, that I have a real job, right? Like, I try to help people along with that answer. And because I know his dad, I know his brother actually pretty well, but I've only really shaken hands with Billy maybe once or twice over the years because I don't spend a lot of time around the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I never got drafted. So
Me too.
he was saying, like, this is great because, he certainly needs to be brought up to speed on, how teams try to position themselves for the postseason and scheduling questions and the NCAA ranking systems and all of that. So I said, basically at your service, because I do come to work here most days. Yeah.
But it would say, so just a little background. When did you start here? I know you were an alumni, but when did you start here, as your role right now?
I moved over to athletics. This was the end of my second year there. Had 30-plus years on the university side in university communications and marketing, a variety of different roles over the years. And believe it or not, for all my kind of sports and professional connections to basketball, I had never worked in a school's athletic department. And even with calling the games all these years.
Yeah.
So it seemed time was right, and as it turns out, lifelong dear friend and colleague Don DeJulia had an opportunity that I was able to take advantage of, and didn't know it at the time, but certainly thought it was a possibility that he would be retiring at some point in the reasonably near future. So in retrospect, having been able to spend his last year together is just something that I'll always treasure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Just going back to when I was your guys' age, in the Hawk office when it was in Campion, just a mentor and someone who, if they said, "Hey, Joe, it would help St. Joe's if you swung upside down from the bridge over City Avenue," I'd probably say, "Okay, Mr. D," and not ask why. Yeah.
So, in my head, between the months of December and March, I picture you locked away in a bunker with 7 TVs watching basketball. Can you confirm that that's the case and not ruin that fantasy for me?
That's pretty close to accurate.
Close. Cool.
I think it's 6 TVs, not 7. No, look, the probably the greatest misconception is that I spend my whole life during the season watching games.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do anything to dissuade people from that point of view. But what it really has become, I would say, tracking games. Because there's a difference. In the early days of bracketology, I would settle in and have one game and watch a game. Like we all want to do, mostly for fun, right? But particularly when it gets later and in my kind of more visible season of January into February, and then obviously through championship weekend, selection weekend, the expectation is that I will always be updating kind of that 1 to 68 list of teams, whether it's at the very top or the bubble or how many from your league, how many from that league, whatever the case may be. So I'm keeping track of games more than I'm sitting and actually, frankly, enjoying them.
Yeah.
When I get to enjoy them is now, because I don't have to track them anymore.
Yeah.
Like people, I'll run into people at lunch today. Oh, this must be your busiest time. And I'm like, this is the best time. To me, the worst place to watch the tournament is at the tournament.
Really?
Which doesn't mean I don't go.
Yeah.
But particularly in the early rounds when lots of games are going on at the same time, I admit, couch potato remote,
Oh, yeah.
that's the way to do it. They're the only games all year, going all the way back to November the whatever when the season starts, that I don't have to enter the result into a spreadsheet and kind of recalibrate my rankings. The tournament is the playground for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to take you back a little bit. I guess, when did everything start to pick up for you? I know in 2008, especially with bracketology, was talk to us about that time, when things started picking up. I guess you being known as the bracket guy.
There've been some milestones along the way, I guess, most of them accidental. Certainly 2002 was the first time I was ever on TV for bracketology, meaning ESPN as a quote-unquote bracket expert. Yeah. I do a small thing here and there, local news or related to St. Joe's and what have you. But 2002 was kind of when it went from a hobby into something that was clearly larger than that, because it got its own kind of site, website within ESPN.com's umbrella, and then ESPN News as a network was new, and its original kind of focus and function was to be the television version of the website, stats and geeky sports content and what have you. And somebody in some newsroom in Connecticut somewhere said, let's put him on. and see if he can talk. And there's a lot of things that I can't do. Talking is not one of them.
Well, you're an Italian, so like we all.
Well, right. And on TV, you get to use your hands and everything. Yeah. So, you guys will appreciate this. Kind of like my media experience was probably less than yours at that point. And I went to a studio about half the size of this glamorous space here.
It's our baby.
At Radio 1851, formerly WSJR. And I'm looking into a camera. I can't see the people I'm talking to. I can hear them on a delay. And the producer's like, hey, we're going to roll some B-roll on Duke and Maryland. Talk about your number 1 seeds. I only remember that because they were both 1 seeds that year out of the ACC and played in the Final Four. And they said, when you hear music, that means we're showing a highlight, and you should be talking. And we'll cue you when it changes. So, Duke. So I started talking about Duke. And after, 20 seconds, Maryland, boom, Kansas, whoever. Mm-hmm. And I got to the end of that, I don't know, 2.5 minutes or whatever it was, and I, not being able to see anything, not getting any reaction from the host, I thought, this was terrible. I have no idea what I was saying vis-a-vis the pictures or any graphics or anything. And then it's silence because of the delay, and the producer comes on and goes, that was great. And I'm like, okay, then.
Let's do this.
And then, every Friday I started going on ESPN News to kind of preview the weekend's games from a bracket perspective. Mm-hmm. I would drive down into Philly to an uplink studio. They would put some little fake backdrop on. Mm-hmm. And, Joey Brackets was born. And there was no plan. There was no intent. There was no, strategy to get more visible or to become that guy.
It was just a segment, kind of.
Yeah, and then every year from then on, it would seem to kind of grow and creep along and be into, bigger and better things. Obviously, 2004, when St. Joe's was undefeated, I got a lot more exposure by simply being connected to the university and the program. Again, nobody planned that.
Yeah.
That's not plannable. And over time, just some of the coolest, craziest sports experiences you can have as a truly non-athletically gifted person have been because of those early days and kind of being willing to stick my neck out a little bit and not be afraid to just fail, to be honest, because it could have just as easily, if not more likely, going the other way. The light could have come on that day. The person in my ear could have whispered Duke, and I could have gone and messed up and, been relegated to a life of typing.
Oh, that's crazy that one moment could change anything.
Yeah, and when that year when the bracket page went up for the first time as its own entity, it got 250,000 hits in the first hour and a half. Wow. And the editors were I didn't know is that good? Is that bad?
Yeah.
It sounded like a lot, but I don't really know. How many hits does, eBay get or whatever? So it's just kind of crept along ever since.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, you got one or?
I mean, what?
Oh, okay. So
whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. So
I don't know what direction we want to go.
Yeah. Okay. You want to do
this tournament or the school?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the school since
all right,
Billy.
Yeah. So I guess obviously yesterday Billy Lang got introduced. I guess the kind of what your expectations are, short term and long term, with the program now headed in a completely new direction for the first time in 25 years. Or
yeah, I left the house yesterday morning, and my wife said to me, "Yeah, today's the day, right?" And I said, "Yeah," and she said, "What do you think?" And I said, I have no idea what to think because we haven't done this forever.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't here in 1851 when the school was founded. Although, there have been certain days lately that it's felt that way. I'm very optimistic long term. It sure looks like we might have to take a step or two back to go forward.
Yeah.
Probably unavoidable, given the circumstances. These guys, and by guys I mean the players, the student athletes, the holdovers, they have their own agenda, and I don't say that in a pejorative, negative way. I mean, like anyone in college, any of us, we're all trying to position ourselves to succeed at something down the line.
Exactly.
And if that means changing your basketball team, in the case of some, or attempting to play professionally at whatever level, in the case of others, it's happening all over Division I. Like it used to be that a transfer was, like so rare as to be almost an outcast. Now, it averages 2 point something per school per year. Like, they all think of themselves almost as like free agents. And nobody wants to ride the bench.
Yeah.
And if this was the accounting club, and the two best guys in a class were going to get, I don't know, offers from a prestigious firm, people would be trying to position themselves for that.
I like what you said about taking a step back to go 2 steps forward, because I think
I would rather not.
I know,
because given the choice, I prefer winning.
Exactly.
And I don't think we'd even be having the conversation if this year had gone as expected.
What do you think the as expected was?
I thought we were going to be good.
Like getting to the A10 final good, or like
I thought realistically we were at minimum an NIT team, with a chance to be a bubble team for the NCAAs, and then this coming year,
next up,
really make it. You guys have been around it enough to know there are fewer and fewer spots available in the tournament for schools like us. And it's shrinking all the time. Now, it did start to break back the other way this year with Belmont. And the team knocked out by one of the upsets late was UNC Greensboro. Like, this is good news. VCU losing in our conference tournament was actually good news because the league, got another slot. But, like, I'm not saying it's a healthy thing to have this as your area of life expertise, but trust me when I say that whether it's Phil Martelli, Billy Lang, John Wooden, or Red Auerbach, attempting to do what we all want is incredibly difficult at a non-power conference, non-football school. It's just like, it's not like it's hard. The deck is stacked. Like, they have all the face cards, and we've got 2s and 3s. That's just the deal.
That's why 04 was a miracle. I would love to be here, and I would love to be just a fly on the wall.
And it's even harder than that. Like, the way they evaluate teams today, that team would not have been a 1 seed today.
Really?
And it was undefeated.
Is it because the loss to Xavier in the
No, it's just because because the downgrading of St. Joe's that year would have been happening all season. And it did happen, but the committee's track record at that time wasn't as overtly Power 5 oriented. So expectations was your question, and I just think they need to be understood in that context. Like yes, you need to say we want to compete for championships and NCAA tournament appearances every year. Well, of course. And we'd like the Eagles to be in every Super Bowl too. And I'd like to be 6'3" and blonde.
I'm with you.
Right? But the reality is, going back to Dr. Jack in the mid-'50s, this institution, St. Joseph's College, now university, has basically averaged an NCAA appearance about once every 4 years or so. And I'm not sure that it's reasonable that that's going to change, given the landscape. There might be some clusters of time where you go 2 times in 5 years, or 3 times in 7 years, or something like that. But too many things have to go right. Yeah. Now, I think we would all like the non-tournament years to be better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've kind of been on this roller coaster of late, and it'd be nice to maybe raise the floor as equally as we're attempting to raise the ceiling. Right? Because what really makes people crankier is the floor, not the ceiling.
Right.
And I get it. Everybody involved, when the old staff and the incoming staff gets it. But you're still talking about kind of the unpredictable actions of 19 and 20-year-olds determining your fate. And no disrespect to guys your age, but I suspect you might do some dumb things occasionally.
No.
Like, I'm 58 and I do. Like, I just walked up campus in the rain to do this, right? right? Because Friday afternoon, what would be better?
Right, yeah.
But I mean,
I'd rather be
seriously,
doing on a Friday afternoon, but
like,
that's just me.
seriously, people say coaches are crazy. Well, of course they are, because if your life and livelihood and family's well-being was dependent upon the random action of 19-year-olds that you couldn't control, you'd be crazy. But again, I'm extremely optimistic about Billy and the hire and the vision. I think there's reason for excitement. I would be completely disingenuous to not say that I've also been incredibly sad. I don't know anybody in a position of decision-making or support of men's basketball or even the university that isn't also sad. I don't know that could really have been avoided in a permanent way. I mean, you can say, well, it'd be nice if they had done it this day or this way. Or I mean, look, at the end of the day, somebody that most people loved isn't here anymore. And that's sad. And because even those who didn't love him as a coach in recent years still love him. But, like with an election, let's say, Billy deserves his chance now and our support. And a lot of these, who might leave, who might stay.
I think they're just a part of it too.
It's like that's just the deal now. It
Just,
didn't
it's
used
growing
to be.
pains.
Like nobody, short of promoting like the top assistant who's been there, like at Temple, right? Short of doing something like that, guys leave. And frankly, they should be allowed to leave, because as much as the NCAA says, well, they sign a letter of intent with an institution, that doesn't really reflect reality.
Right.
Like, if you chose a specific major, right, as your reason for coming to St. Joe's or wherever, and then they ended that major after your sophomore year, you might go where that major is. And that's not unreasonable. Yeah. Right? So that's part and parcel of the deal. But just as there were really strong candidates for the coaching job, I think over time there will be really strong candidates for playing time. Because ultimately, like, the talent pool kind of slots itself, right? Like Zion Williamson is never coming to St. Joseph's. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to burst your bubble.
Yeah, we knew that.
And I don't think the actual Zion Williamson is going to decide to stay in school and ask for a hardship waiver and transfer to play for Billy Lang.
Who knows? You
like,
can never say never.
Like, you can have an active fantasy life, and it ain't going to be in there. Okay? But, like, there's lots of good players in our, area of reach that we'll be able to get involved and have, like, we've always had really good, sometimes not always at the same time, which is the luck part. Right? But, yeah, like, I don't think we're going to be irrelevant or drop the sport. I just, whereas next year and the schedule, frankly, for next year's team, and this is something I'm involved with, was kind of built for a veteran team making a tournament push.
Okay.
Right? That schedule, with one possible exception, is now set, and it's probably going to be too challenging for next year's players and a new coaching staff.
Yeah.
And that you just have to live with.
Do you think because the other candidate was obviously Jameer Nelson, do you think, this is kind of a two-part question. One, do you think he would take an assistant coaching job, and if that discussion is still going on? And also, with Billy Lang's connections with obviously Brett Brown, Embiid's given his support. You've probably seen the video of.
I'd rather have his last 3 years of eligibility than his support. Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too.
Hey, thanks for the tweet, Joel. But can you get in the Temple game?
You can't teach 7-2.
Go block a shot for us.
But do you think
I'll tweet for you.
Right? Like his connection to. He's obviously a pro coach, and then would that help with recruiting? And then do you think Jameer, there's any shot he would take an assistant coaching job there?
My gut, and I have not had a personal conversation with Jameer about that. We did talk at the A10 tournament, kind of in general, more about Mir or Jameer Jr. Like, there's actually pictures in my house of Jameer Jr. like with my daughters.
Wow.
Like, they were not babies, but we traveled a lot as families in those years when Jameer was a player. I don't really know what Jameer wants to do professionally. I know for most of this year he was still hoping to play and was here pretty much every morning pursuing that. And then, it got to be, month or whatever after the trade deadline in the NBA, and, it wasn't going to happen. And, in all likelihood, he's done as a professional basketball player. Most of the time when he's talked about coaching, it has been breaking into the NBA ranks to coach. So, I doubt when he stopped playing, he even thought that this was a possibility. And really, there's probably only a handful of people who know how serious a candidate he was or wasn't. Publicly, he was the other candidate. I don't know that that's completely true.
Okay.
I think there were probably 4 or 5 really good candidates at the end of the process, of which I'm sure he was one of them. But that's a leap of faith on both sides when you've never been a coach, because it's more so in college than in the NBA. There's a lot of non-basketball things that go with the job, right? And most head coaches in college have been college assistants, and I suspect his mindset is more like, all right, well, where do I want to start as an assistant? Like, do I want to be a college assistant or a pro assistant? Because what do I want at the end of that road? Like, this was probably more of a one-off opportunity in the grand scheme of things. And my gut tells me that he'll work in the NBA next.
Gotcha.
And that wouldn't have even been a conversation had not the timing of this transition been what it is. Again, no inside information.
Yeah.
Haven't spoke to him.
Complete gut.
That's just
from now on.
That's just my gut.
Yeah. You guys have anything else out, or do you want to talk about this weekend, the tournament, the Final Four? Jeff, if you have anything. You've been a little quiet over here. Want to see if get you
listening.
involved in the action.
Already got me in trouble once.
Yeah, I know. Come here. I've basically got the mute mic from Joey Brackets, but let's.
That's really a badge of honor.
I'm gonna put it on my resume. I'm gonna put it on my resume.
And I am
if I have your permission.
You bet.
Awesome.
Will Hobbs School of Business approve that?
They should.
Career Development Center.
They should.
They will now. So
I'll write you a doctor's note.
Awesome. So this March Madness has been filled with upsets. What do you think is the
Actually
biggest surprise?
not, though.
Filled.
Right? I mean,
No,
they happened later than you. Now
Later
they
than
happened
usual.
late. Yeah.
Bracket busters or bracket busters?
Okay, fair enough.
What's in your mind? What's the biggest surprise of the tournament?
From an individual game standpoint, I think I would go Auburn pretty much blasting North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised by that.
So was my wallet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, there's no gambling at Bushwood, son. A lot of people thought that Auburn at the beginning of the year was a borderline top 10 team and could be the one with Tennessee to be challenging Kentucky in the SEC. They had some, distractions along the way, and may yet again in terms of off-court scrutiny. But I was surprised, frankly, that Carolina was such a no-show in that game. Mm-hmm. After that, now they're playing with house money, and they could. I mean, this is a pretty wide-open group of teams. I think in these two national semifinals, I like Virginia a lot tactically in this matchup for the simple reason that it's almost always easier for a slow team to slow down a fast one than the other way around. Like, Auburn's not going to speed Virginia up. Mm-mm. Like, they're going to do what they do. And they do it really well. So I would be, if this game is 66-61 or something like that, I think that really favors Virginia. The other game is more of a toss-up to me because Texas Tech is playing really, 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 really well. I give Michigan State a slight edge because I think among this group of Final Four teams, they have the best player at the most important position.
Cassius.
Correct. Cassius Winston, the point guard. College is still largely a point guards and guards game, no matter what Jay Billis says.
Are you guys boys? You and Jay Billis?
No.
Okay.
We're not
okay.
like we're friendly, but we're not. Yeah, no.
Like the way that you just kind of mixed him in there, I wasn't sure if it was just from watching him or if you guys just talk yo Jay, what's going on?
No. There are guys I'm like that with. I think in Jay's mind, I didn't play and I didn't coach, so I'm not in the club. That's okay. He didn't bracket, so he's not in my club.
There you go.
But there are other guys, whether it's Jay Will or LaFonso Ellis or Seth or guys on other network that I'm, really tight with. Yeah. And again, I think he's the best analyst on TV by a wide margin.
I'm actually with you on that. I do agree
because to me, the mark of a good analyst is, did I learn something that I didn't know? Mm-hmm. Right? And I almost always do on his games. And I've said that to him. I the bar's reasonably high in me learning something that I didn't know in the middle of the season. Because I'm the knucklehead who's up, till 2 and 3 in the morning for 5 months studying it. Yeah. So, it's hard to slip one past me. Yeah. But he's really good. But in the history of the tournament, I think there have been more guard-impacted teams than, especially these days, with spread the floor and shoot the three and chuck and duck. Yeah.
So if you had to make a pick of who's on Monday, who's cutting down the nets,
I would say Virginia.
Virginia. Okay.
Yes. Primarily, not because I think they're better than Michigan State. I can't really decide, but because I just think they're more likely to win on Saturday. Ergo, they're more likely to be in the game on Monday.
Gotcha. Okay.
Having said all that, it'll probably be Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Right.
And Virginia won't even beat Auburn. They'll lose by 15.
No, they're going to beat Auburn. I'm reasonably confident in that.
Okay.
Locked.
Yeah.
Wait, Jeff, do you want to talk about Gonzaga? Your beef
he's
with
a
them?
Gonzaga hater. And when we
Why?
yeah, you guys need to duke it out with.
You guys are. This is okay. Hold on. Let me.
Gonzaga. He's so wrong about.
Let me
Gonzaga.
preface anything I'm about to say. Let me preface anything I'm about to say. If you're listening to this on YouTube, go backpedal like 15 minutes to when Joe was saying the deck is stacked against you. This is like a David versus Goliath type debate I'm about to embark on.
Deck stacked against you.
And we all know who I am in this situation.
Right. Okay. So, what do you have to say about Gonzaga, Jeff?
I like to think that Gonzaga is like the Notre Dame of college basketball. And I know he's just taking everything in, and I'm just going to get shut down. I'm ready for it.
Steady.
Steady.
It's like watching a lion
look,
hunt
we're-
down.
Yeah, no, it's like watching a lion hunt. I don't want to look at him.
We all have a St. Joseph's educational pedigree. We've been taught
Not
to
yet.
embrace all
Not
points
yet.
of view.
That's true.
So I tend to think I am a like Power 5 or like big super conference fan, and I tend to take away from the mid majors.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, I think Gonzaga, their out of conference schedule, they stack. They went 2-1 against ranked teams. I think they beat Duke earlier this year. I think they lost to Tennessee, and they lost. I think Kentucky or
They lost at Carolina.
yeah. So they were 1-2 against top 25 teams, and then their out of conference or their in conference schedule to me is like playing a bunch of like what quote me on this. They play a bunch of intramural teams.
So disrespectful.
So
I
Clearly, St. Joe's in 04 wasn't getting a 1 seed if this guy was.
Oh no! If I was on the panel, probably not.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. Feel free to try to take me down.
I want to hear this.
No, hey. I think most casual fans agree with that.
Casual.
No. I mean, like,
I know.
like most people would go, who's
Yeah.
UCLA, Gonzaga. Well, UCLA's won 12 championships and 10 in a row or whatever. Of course, they're better. I am a little passionate about this topic, not because of Gonzaga specifically, but having studied the issue of like let's not compare Gonzaga to North Carolina necessarily, but the larger question of power conferences versus what I would call the higher end mid majors. Like we're not talking about like the league that Coppin State is in or Grambling is in. Like they shouldn't really be in Division I. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm talking more the Loyola Chicago, George Mason, VCU, St. Joe's, St. Mary's, Wichita State before they moved up type of program. Here's what the data says. Okay,
this is definitely where you have me. Not to cut you off. This is where my faults lie.
No, and it's okay. I'm not here to dispute. I'm here to enlighten.
Right. He's a teacher.
Learn something new every day.
The data would say, and this is over a multi-year, 10, 15-year period of studying it, that what I would call the middling majors, like the teams that are like 9-9 in the Big Ten, or sometimes worse, right? So, say 500 and below teams in the power leagues versus the really high-end Murray State, Belmont, whoever you want to put on that list. Here's what we know. That this is documented. More of the middling majors get in than the Belmonts. They also get better seeds, historically, on average. right? Like, no, but none of those schools are getting 3s and 4s. You know, like if you're 9-9 in the ACC, you're going to be an 8 or a 9 or a 10. If you're Belmont, you're going to be an 11 or a 12 and be in a play-in game or what have you. Here's what we know. Fewer bids, worse seeds, significantly higher winning percentage in the tournament. So, my question to the Power 5 advocates, all the way from Jay Billis to Jeff, is a simple one. If they're so much better, why, on a neutral court environment with neutral officials, do they win less? That's my question. And you can say on a team versus team comparison, like this year's Syracuse versus next year's, Rhode Island. Okay. Yeah, Syracuse was fine. But I'm talking type of team over a decade. One has underachieved relative to their seeding and selection, and the other group has consistently overachieved. I think there's learning that should take place from that data. And for either political or whatever reasons, generally the committee chooses to let me rail about it and never act upon it. So when someone wants to say that Gonzaga is X and North Carolina is Y, the question almost always is framed as, well, what would Gonzaga's record be in the ACC? Right? They wouldn't go 16-2 the way they do in the West Coast Conference. And the answer is, you're darn right, they would lose more games in the ACC. You're darn right. But the question is never asked the other way, which is, how would Duke perform if they had to play 6 or 7 extra road games? Do you know how many true road games Duke played this year in the non-conference?
0.
Correct. And it's only 0 or 1 every year. Like they're either on the road in the ACC Big Ten Challenge or they're at home. And the years that they're at home, now they play a lot of super high-end neutral games because they're Duke. Right? And people want them in Maui, and they want them at Madison Square Garden, and they want them in the Jimmy V Challenge. I get all that. I want to watch. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, road teams lose over 70% of the time at every level of Division I. Like, I'm not making up that number. And it's not a one-year number. It's all the time. Okay? So, like, trust me, if Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, or Kansas added a half dozen road games to their schedule, they would lose half of them. They wouldn't lose 70% of them because they have better players. Okay, but they wouldn't go 6-0. Like, because they just, maybe they would one time, but over a 10-year span they wouldn't. Well, like, why do you think they fight so hard not to play those games?
That's a good point.
Right? Like, why would you rather eat ice cream than string beans? Okay, because you gave me a choice, and I'm going to choose the better. Right? Like, I have a choice of playing, UNC Asheville at home or going to Gonzaga.
Yeah. No one goes to Gonzaga.
Now, to North Carolina's credit, they are actually returning this year's game to Gonzaga next year, which is a statement about how far Gonzaga has come.
True. Yeah.
That it actually is beneficial to North Carolina to play that game. That is a major statement. So, it's a valid opinion.
Yeah.
The data doesn't support most of it.
All right.
So you've stated your data, obviously. What do you think could help out other mid-majors that are, say, within close to Gonzaga, but not at that level? Because a lot of Gonzaga, I would say Gonzaga is one of the most well-known
Yes,
Yeah, they're
for sure.
the most well-known mid-major team. What about the ones that are
and they don't do anything
close?
mid-major like
Scheduling
they
3
fly
top
charter
25
everywhere.
teams,
They're in the
yeah.
mountain. Right. I think a couple of things need to happen in the sport. The first thing I would do is require tournament eligibility. And I don't want anything in college basketball to be like college football, where there's bowl eligibility. It's just a convenient that the terms are similar. Mm-hmm. You should have to be 500 in your league. Or there should be some floor. Like we were still talking about teams like on selection weekend that were like 7-13. Like, that's nuts to me. Mm-hmm. Like, why have leagues then?
Yeah.
If the most important part of your enterprise, we're not paying attention to your record in that league. You know, the team sheets that the committee members use and talk about, they don't even have league record on it.
Wow.
Like, that's insane to me.
That must explain why St. John's got in it. 8 and
Correct.
10. St. John,
Like, if our St. Joe's team this past year had played St. John's best of 7, we would have won a couple. Like, they weren't very good.
Yeah.
And
they were streaky.
Clearly, we weren't very good. And I don't think I'm insulting anyone by saying that, including Chris Mullen and Phil Martelli.
Right.
They just weren't very good. Yeah. So that would free up 2, 3, 4 spots a year in the at-large pool that would then go to the Belmonts and the Rhode Islands and the St. Mary's and the, Loyola Chicagos. Like, that would be a good thing. And I think the positive reaction to this year's final at-large selections of Belmont and the like prove that that's what the public wants. Mm-hmm. Right? Like the public, the casual fan, understands, and I'm not saying you are, understands what? They understand winning.
Right. Yeah.
They don't understand 17-13. Mm-hmm. And losing, 4 or 9 of your last 13 games. They don't understand that. Yeah. Because there's no other place where that would then result in the ability to compete for a championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's one thing I would do. The other thing I would do, and I'm not as clear on the details of this because there's just so many variables and needs of the different programs. There has to be some kind of requirement about playing road games to help level the playing field somewhat. Because, like, if you're Syracuse and you're essentially like 9-0 before the season starts because you're paying Colgate to come and Hamilton and Cornell and mm-hmm. Like, there's no other sporting enterprise where you can stack the deck that easily.
Yeah.
And then you can say, you want about strength of schedule, but if I'm looking at a team that's, 21-5, even if 9 of those 21 games were scrimmages, or what did you call them?
Intramural teams.
Intramural teams. Right. So your power, here you go, North Carolina State, the brand new NCAA metric, they were like 32nd or 33rd, which, would seem to put them well within reach. Thank God the committee went a little further down the data. North Carolina State's non-conference schedule rank was
200 something. I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been a vast improvement.
Oh, okay.
353 out of
353.
Ding ding.
Wow.
Ding ding. Yet their athletic director and coach had the nerve on Selection Sunday night to howl, including on a radio show at ESPN that I happened to be sitting by a mic like this. And I went, with all respect, Dr. So-and-so, the athletic director, I said, you had 22 wins. 11 of them came against, I didn't use the word, intramural teams. So your record is not 22-13, it's 11-13. Does an 11-13 team belong in the NCAA tournament? I think most any reasonable person would say no. So I'll shill for the power conferences when they step up and come to Hagen Arena.
Awesome. I would love the power.
How's that?
Yeah. All right. So that's all we have. Joe, thank you so much
You
for
bet.
coming. That was a lot of fun. Ryan, thanks for standing out there and flagging him down.
Thank you, Joe.
Hey, that was great.
That's all.
Great
we
show,
have.
fellas. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We'll be back next Friday.